Well, ahoy, mateys, we're jumping into 4.1. I believe in class we talked a little bit about percent, meaning out of 100. That's extremely important anytime you are working with percents. You have to remember that percent literally means out of 100 or for every 100. So if you are a note taker, here is what you want to write down. Also, I'd highly recommend taking notes in a notebook or composition book. So the idea is percents as fractions. What you want to do is remember that percent means out of 100. And then all you have to do, for example, the example they give us here, 60% as a fraction, you can write as 60 over 100 because percent literally means out of 100. This works with all percents, including the ones with decimals and ugly numbers, but sometimes you'll then have to simplify. But the main thing is remember that it's the number out of 100. So 60 over 100, we would then simplify to 3/5. So the final answer for this one would be 3/5. And that's what we're going to get into next. So go ahead and feel free to jot down notes on this. Very important information. Okay, so if we are going to work with finding 35% as a fraction in simplest form, first, what is just 35% as a fraction without being in simplest form? Yeah, first it would be 35 over 100. There we go. So 35 hundredths. Okay, your job now is to simplify 35 hundredths. You can do this by factoring these down and crossing out common factors, or just dividing out a common number until you get to simplest form. So what is 35 hundredths in simplest form? Okay, so what I would do is divide out a 5 from 35 and 100. You get 7/20ths, or you can factor out a 5. You'll be left with 7 over 20. Okay, what about the second one? What is 100% as a fraction in simplest form? Okay, so it is 100 out of 100. Oh, wait, we're getting all sorts. Oh, look at this. They have lovely graphics. As you'll see, I believe you've done some of these already in 4.1a. So 35% you can model on a 100 grid by filling in 35 boxes out of 100. And it's also 7/20ths. Okay, let's get to the question I was asking you already, which is 100% as a fraction in simplest form. It's 100 over 100, which simplifies to 1. There we go. So it's 1. And if you were to shade in what this would represent on the graph, you would shade in all 100 squares. There they are. Okay, whoops. Oh, all right. Okay, so those are some basic straightforward examples. You're also going to have some like this, 174% as a mixed number in simplest form. So first, write 174% as the simplest, not simplest, as in simplified, but as in the easiest possible way. Okay, so yeah, it's 174 out of 100. So it's 174 on top, 100 on the bottom. Okay, so now use what you've learned before to simplify that to the least form, I guess, the simplest form. Yeah, so write that as a mixed fraction in simplest form. Okay, so you end up with 87 over 50, which is the same as 1 and 37/50ths. Or you could have done 174 over 100 is 1 and 74 hundredths, which simplifies to that still. Okay, so you got some that are going to be like that today, that are more than 100%, and you have to turn them into simplest form. Okay, and then you'll also have to represent some of your answers on these grids. So if it's more than 100%, you need to fill in one grid completely. That's 100%. And then you'd fill in 74 out of the 100 on the second grid. There's 174%. Okay, you will also have to be able to convert fractions to percents. Now the trick on this is, remember again, percent is out of 100. You want to turn the fraction into a fraction out of 100. Usually this is easy and straightforward. Sometimes it's not, and we'll talk about how you can do the ones that are not straightforward. So again, if you're a note taker, this is a great little thing and an example that you can put in your notes. Okay, so moving on here to some problems to work through. So 3/50ths as a percent. So first what you want to do is change 3/50ths so that it's out of 100. So what is 3/50ths if you turn it into out of 100? Okay, so 3/50ths, if you double both the top and bottom, you get 6 out of 100. So that is 6%. So 3/50ths is the same as 6%. But notice we turned it out of 100 first. What about something like this? 9 thousandths. How are you going to turn 1,000 into 100? Yeah, you're going to divide it by 10. Okay, so 1,000 divided by 10 is 100. So that means you have to divide the top by 10 as well, which gives you 0.9 out of 100. Normally you don't want decimals in fractions, but this isn't really a fraction. We needed it out of 100. And our answer then would be 0.9% because it's out of 100. Okay, so this last example is a word problem. You're going to have some word problems, and it's also one that's not easy to convert directly into 100. So here we have a drought which affects 9 out of the 12 Midwestern states. What percent of the Midwestern states are affected by the drought? So first you need a fraction. So what fraction are affected by the drought? Yeah, so it's 9 out of 12, which they're going through here. Kind of slowly. There it is. Okay, so simplify 9/12. All right, so you simplify 9/12 and you end up with 3/4. There it is. Okay, now 3/4 is easy to turn into hundredths. So what do you have to do to the top and bottom to turn this into out of 100? Okay, so you're going to multiply both the top and bottom by 25, and then you end up getting 75 out of 100, which means it is 75%. There we go. Okay, you may see some problems that are not as easy to turn into out of 100. So what you're going to want to do is use what we practiced with ratio tables, and you can use a ratio table to get things out of 100. There are other methods as well that include some long division. I can show you how to do that. Just make sure to ask if you have questions in class, and I will see you as you're working through these in class. All right.